Sign it, Maya. You already took enough years from me. Caleb Whitmore said it without raising his voice, and somehow that made it worse. The sentence landed across the conference table like a slap no one in the room wanted to admit they heard. Maya Brooks sat still in the leather chair, her old camel coat folded neatly over her lap. Her left hand closed around the wedding ring she had taken off that morning. 6 years of marriage, 2 years of begging him to come home before midnight, 1 year of pretending not to notice the perfume on his shirts, and this was what she had become to him. A delay, an inconvenience, a woman to be removed before lunch. Caleb sat opposite her in a navy suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, his blonde hair combed back, his jaw clean-shaven, his face calm in the polished way rich men use when they want cruelty to look like confidence. Beside him, his mother, Margaret Whitmore, adjusted her pearl bracelet and gave Maya a thin smile. "Dear, no one is trying to embarrass you," she said, though her voice carried nothing but embarrassment for her. "Caleb has been generous. Most women in your position would understand that and leave with dignity." Maya looked down at the divorce papers. Her name was printed beside Caleb's in cold black ink, as if a printer could summarize every meal she had cooked, every bill she had covered when his first startup failed, every hospital hallway she had sat in when his father's heart surgery went longer than expected. She had loved that family when they had nothing to offer her but worry. Now they looked at her like she had snuck into their lives and overstayed her welcome. Caleb pushed a silver pen toward her with 2 fingers. "The condo is mine. The accounts are already separated. You'll get the settlement we discussed, and you can move on." Maya lifted her eyes. "The settlement you discussed with your lawyer. Not with me." His mouth tightened. "Do not make this dramatic." From the hallway outside the glass wall, a soft laugh floated in. Maya turned just enough to see Lauren Vale standing near the reception desk in a cream-colored coat, holding Caleb's phone like she already owned everything connected to him. Lauren caught Maya looking and smiled. Not kindly, not accidentally. Caleb did not even turn around. That hurt more than the smile. Maya's throat tightened, but she refused to let the room see it. She had cried enough in places where no one came looking. In the laundry room, in the driver's seat outside grocery stores, in the bathroom with the water running so Caleb would not hear. But not here, not in front of people who mistook her silence for defeat. Her phone buzzed inside her purse. Once, then again. Margaret sighed. "Can we please finish this?" Maya reached for the phone slowly. A message lit the screen from Harold Bennett, a name she had only heard for the first time the night before. "Do not sign anything until I arrive." Maya stared at those words, feeling her pulse shift from fear into something steadier. Caleb leaned back, annoyed. "Who is it?" Maya closed her hand around the phone and looked at the pen waiting in front of her. For the first time all morning, she almost smiled. "Someone my mother should have told me about a long time ago." Before Caleb Whitmore learned how to look expensive, Maya Brooks had seen him eat dollar menu burgers in a parking lot and pretend he was not scared. That was the part his family liked to erase. Long before the glass conference room, before the lawyer with the perfect tie, before Lauren Vale waited in the hallway wearing victory like perfume, Caleb had been a young man with a busted Honda Civic, $42 in his checking account, and a dream he could not afford. Maya met him at a neighborhood fundraiser in Atlanta, where he was trying to convince strangers to invest in an idea that sounded too big for the folding table he was standing behind. People smiled politely and walked away. Maya stayed. She listened, not because his pitch was perfect, but because underneath all that nervous confidence, she saw someone trying not to drown. "You really believe this can work?" she had asked him that night. Caleb looked embarrassed, then honest. "I have to." That answer stayed with her. 6 months later, they were dating. A year after that, Maya was helping him pack his life into a rented moving truck and driving with him all the way to Charlotte, where he swore there were better investors, better offices, better chances. Maya had her own plans back then. She wanted to finish her nursing degree, maybe buy a small house with a porch, maybe take her mother on the beach vacation they always talked about but never took. But love has a way of making sacrifice feel noble before it starts feeling lonely. So Maya worked the early shift at a pharmacy and picked up weekend hours at a diner near the interstate. She paid the electric bill when Caleb forgot. She bought his first real interview suit on a store credit card and told him he looked like somebody important. He laughed and kissed her forehead. "When I make it, I am taking care of you forever." She believed him. Back then, Margaret Whitmore still called Maya sweetheart because Caleb needed her. When Caleb's father had surgery, Maya was the one who sat beside Margaret in the waiting room, bringing coffee, reading updates from the nurse, keeping everyone calm while Caleb paced. When the business almost collapsed in its second year, Maya sold the small gold necklace her mother had left her, telling Caleb it was no big deal. It was a big deal. It was the last piece of her mother she could hold in her hand. But Caleb cried that night, and Maya told herself marriage was not about keeping score. Then the money came. Not all at once, but fast enough to change the air around him. Caleb started wearing tailored shirts. Margaret stopped inviting Maya into conversations and started correcting how she spoke at dinners. His friends began calling her down to earth in a way that did not sound like a compliment. And slowly, Caleb stopped saying, "We built this," and started saying, "my company." Maya noticed every change. She just kept hoping the man from the parking lot was still in there somewhere. What she did not know was that the woman he was leaving behind had a name powerful enough to shake every room he had fought so hard to enter. Lauren Vale was waiting outside the conference room like she had been invited to watch a house get demolished. She stood near the reception desk with Caleb's phone in one hand and a paper cup of coffee in the other, dressed in a cream coat that looked soft enough to forgive anything. Maya saw her through the glass before Caleb did. Or maybe Caleb had seen her all along and simply did not care how it looked. That was the thing about betrayal. It did not always arrive as a shocking confession. Sometimes it stood 20 feet away, checking its reflection in a dark window, already comfortable in your place. Maya slipped her phone back into her purse, but Harold Bennett's message stayed burning in her mind. "Do not sign anything until I arrive." Caleb tapped the pen once against the table. "Maya, we are not going to sit here all day because some mystery person texted you." Margaret gave a tired little laugh, the kind people use when they want cruelty to sound reasonable. "You have always had a flair for timing, dear." Maya looked at her, really looked at her, and remembered every Thanksgiving she had cooked in Margaret's kitchen while the Whitmore relatives asked if she was used to this kind of neighborhood yet. She remembered smiling through it because Caleb squeezed her hand under the table. He used to know when something hurt her. Now he was the one pressing the bruise. "I need a few minutes," Maya said. Caleb stood so quickly his chair rolled back against the carpet. "No, you have had months." The glass door opened before Maya could answer. Lauren stepped in with Caleb's phone held out like a trophy. "Your investor called twice," she said, then glanced at Maya. "Sorry, I did not realize this was still dragging on." Still dragging on. Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. Caleb took the phone without correcting her, without even looking embarrassed. Lauren tilted her head, eyes moving over Maya's coat, her simple black dress, the purse with the worn corner she had carried for years because replacing it always felt unnecessary. "You know," Lauren said softly, "you should be proud. Not every woman gets replaced by an upgrade." The room went quiet in that special way people get quiet when they know a line has been crossed, but they are curious to see who will bleed from it. Maya looked at Caleb. Just once. She waited for the man she had loved to say, "Enough." To say, "Do not speak to my wife that way," even if she was about to become his ex-wife. Caleb only rubbed his thumb along his jaw and muttered, "Lauren, not now." Not that she was wrong. Not that Maya deserved respect. Just not now. Maya's fingers relaxed around the ring in her palm. For the first time, she stopped mourning the marriage and started seeing it clearly. Caleb had not been stolen from her. He had walked away piece by piece, and every person in this room had watched him do it. Lauren smiled again, mistaking Maya's silence for shame. But that was her first mistake, because the woman she had just mocked was not waiting for permission to matter anymore. And somewhere in the elevator below, Harold Bennett was carrying a folder that would make every person in that room wish they had chosen their words more carefully. The night before the conference room, Maya had almost ignored the call. It came in at 10:47 p.m., while she was sitting on the edge of her bed in the small apartment she had rented after Caleb moved out. A half-packed suitcase lay open on the floor. Her wedding dress, sealed in a plastic garment bag, hung on the closet door like a ghost from a life that no longer wanted her. The caller identification said unknown number, and Maya was too tired for another bill collector, another lawyer, another voice asking her to prove she deserved something. But something in her chest told her to answer. "Is this Maya Brooks?" an older man asked. His voice was calm, careful, Southern in a way that reminded her of courthouse steps and Sunday suits. "Who is this?" Maya said, already guarded. "My name is Harold Bennett. I was your mother's legal advisor many years ago." Maya went still. No one called about her mother. Not anymore. Denise Brooks had been gone for 7 years, and most days Maya carried that grief quietly, like a folded letter in her pocket. "My mother was a home health nurse," Maya said. "She did not have a legal advisor." Harold was silent for a breath. That is what she wanted people to believe. Maya almost hung up. She was not in the mood for a scam dressed up as family history. But then Harold said her mother's full name. Denise Elaine Carrington Brooks. Carrington. Maya had seen that name only once, written on the back of an old photograph her mother kept taped inside a cookbook. When Maya asked about it as a teenager, Denise had closed the book too fast and said, "Some doors stay shut for a reason, baby." Maya stood from the bed, her knees weak. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," Harold said. "I am calling because your grandfather, Charles Carrington, passed away 3 weeks ago. His estate is being settled. Your mother was his eldest daughter, and you are her only child." Maya stared at the wall where a framed photo of her and Caleb still hung, not because she wanted it there, but because she had not yet found the strength to take it down. "My mother told me her family was dead. In some ways, they were to her," Harold said gently. "She left them to protect you from a fight over money, control, and reputation. But she never removed your name from the trust." The word trust sounded too big for Maya's apartment, too clean for the laundry basket in the corner and the stack of unpaid legal notices on her kitchen counter. Harold continued, "There are documents you need to see before you sign anything tomorrow, especially anything involving Caleb Whitmore." Maya's hand tightened around the phone. "Why Caleb?" Harold's voice changed then, still polite, but heavier. "Because the Carrington Trust holds a controlling interest in the private fund backing his company's expansion. And if he has misrepresented marital assets during this divorce, that becomes a very serious problem." Maya sat down slowly, the room tilting around her. All those years Caleb had looked at her like she was standing outside the world he wanted. All those dinners where Margaret spoke around her. All those moments Lauren probably laughed at the idea of replacing a woman with nothing. They had all been wrong. But the strange part was, Maya did not feel powerful. Not yet. She felt sad. Sad that her mother had carried so much alone. Sad that Caleb had needed a family name to see value in the woman who had loved him when he had none. And as Harold told her not to sign anything until he arrived, Maya looked at her wedding photo one last time and whispered, "Mama, what did you leave me in the middle of?" The conference room door opened with a soft click, but every head turned like thunder had entered the room. Harold Bennett stepped inside, carrying a dark leather folder under one arm, his gray suit pressed, his glasses low on his nose, his expression calm enough to make Caleb look suddenly loud. He was not tall in a showy way, and he did not move like a man trying to impress anyone. That was what made him unsettling. He looked like someone who had spent a lifetime walking into rooms where powerful people learned they were not as powerful as they thought. "I apologize for the delay," Harold said. "Traffic on Tryon Street was backed up." Caleb frowned. "Who are you?" Harold did not answer him first. He turned to Maya, and his voice softened. "Ms. Brooks, I am sorry you had to sit through this without representation." Margaret straightened in her chair. Representation? She already had months to hire counsel. Harold placed the folder on the table and looked at Margaret for half a second. "Then I suppose it is fortunate I arrived before she signed away rights she did not yet know she had." Lauren shifted near the doorway. The smile was gone from her face now, replaced by the first hint of uncertainty. Caleb let out a short laugh, but it sounded forced. "This is ridiculous. Maya, we agreed to handle this cleanly." Maya looked at him across the table. "No, Caleb. You agreed. I survived the agreement." The room went still. Caleb's attorney, a thin man named Preston Hale, reached for the folder with the cautious hand of someone afraid of what paper could do. Harold opened it himself and removed a stack of documents clipped with blue tabs, each page stamped with a seal Maya had seen only in Harold's message the night before. Carrington Trust. Preston's face changed before he said a word. Not much, but enough. Caleb saw it. So did Margaret. Harold slid the first document across the table. "For the record, my client's full legal name is Maya Carrington Brooks. She is the sole living heir of Denise Elaine Carrington Brooks and a named beneficiary of the Carrington Family Trust. Margaret blinked. That cannot be right. Harold looked at her calmly. It is right. Caleb leaned forward, his jaw tightening. Maya, what is this? She almost laughed, not because anything was funny, but because after 6 years of marriage, Caleb was finally asking a real question about who she was. Something my mother hid from me, she said. And something you never cared enough to know. Lauren stepped into the room. Caleb, what does this have to do with the divorce? Harold turned another page. Quite a lot, Ms. Vale. Especially since Mr. Whitmore's company received financing through a private fund in which the Carrington Trust holds controlling authority. Caleb's face went pale around the edges. The pen he had pushed toward Maya sat untouched between them, suddenly looking small and foolish. Harold continued. There will be no signature today. Not on this settlement. Not on this custody waiver. Not on any document that was drafted under incomplete financial disclosure. Preston cleared his throat. We may need a recess. You need more than a recess, Harold said, still calm. You need to explain why several marital assets were moved into shell accounts 3 days after Mr. Whitmore filed for divorce. Margaret's hand flew to her pearls. Lauren looked at Caleb, waiting for him to deny it. He did not. Maya felt her heartbeat in her wrists, but her voice stayed steady. You told me I was leaving with what I deserved. Caleb opened his mouth, but no clean sentence came out. Maya picked up the silver pen, turned it once in her fingers, then set it back down in front of him. Then we should start by discussing what you tried to take from me. The room did not explode. That was what made it worse. No one shouted. No one slammed a door. The truth simply sat in the middle of the conference table, printed on cream-colored paper with the Carrington seal at the top, and every person who had treated Maya like she was small had to read it one line at a time. Caleb reached for the document, but Harold placed 2 fingers on the edge and held it steady. Copies will be provided through counsel, he said. Caleb pulled his hand back like he had touched something hot. Margaret's lips parted, but for once, she did not have a polished sentence ready. She kept looking from Maya to Harold, as if wealth should have announced itself better, as if Maya had committed some social crime by not dressing like a secret heiress. Maya, Margaret said carefully, her voice suddenly softer, why did you never tell us? Maya turned toward her. Would it have changed how you treated me? Margaret looked away. That answer was enough. Lauren stood by the glass door, arms crossed tight against her coat. Caleb, say something, she whispered. Caleb stared at the papers, and Maya could almost see the math happening behind his eyes. Not grief. Not regret. Numbers. Contracts. Board seats. Investor calls. His company's expansion. The private fund he had bragged about for months. The same fund that now had Maya's family name wrapped around it like a lock. Harold opened another page. The Carrington Trust holds voting authority in Westbridge Capital's private growth fund. Westbridge is currently the lead financial partner in Whitmore Logistics' southeastern expansion. Until this divorce matter is reviewed, my client has the right to request a temporary pause on all related approvals. Preston Hale removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. That one motion told the room everything. Caleb's voice dropped. You cannot be serious. Harold looked at him. I am rarely unserious in legal matters. Maya almost missed the old Caleb then, the broke young man in the parking lot who would have laughed at a line like that. But the man across from her was not him anymore. This Caleb only looked frightened because the woman he had tried to discard had become inconvenient to his ambition. Margaret leaned forward, trying to recover what dignity she could. Maya, whatever misunderstanding has happened here, we are still family. The word family hit Maya harder than the documents. Family was what Margaret had never called her when Maya was bringing groceries to her house after surgery. Family was not what Caleb called her when he spent nights away and came home smelling like someone else's expensive life. Family was not what Lauren saw when she called her an upgrade. Maya folded her hands on the table. No, Margaret. I was useful. That is different. Lauren's face flushed. Caleb finally looked at Maya. Really looked at her, but it was too late for that look to feel like love. Maya, we can talk about this privately. We are talking privately, she said. You just do not like that I am not alone anymore. Harold reached into the folder and removed a second envelope, smaller, sealed, with Caleb's name typed across the front. Preston sat up straight. What is that? Harold slid it toward him. Records of asset transfers, consulting payments, and a Delaware holding account opened 3 days after the divorce filing. We believe those funds were intentionally withheld from the marital disclosure. Lauren looked at Caleb like she was seeing the price tag fall off a gift she thought was hers. Margaret whispered, "Caleb?" He did not answer. Maya watched his silence fill the room, heavy and ugly. For years, he had called her emotional whenever she asked for honesty. Now the papers were doing the talking, and he had nowhere to hide. Harold turned to Maya. "Ms. Brooks, you do not need to decide everything today." Maya nodded slowly, then looked at Caleb. Her voice did not shake. "Good. Because today is the first day I am deciding for myself." By sunrise, Caleb Whitmore's life had started making sounds he had never heard before. Not loud sounds. Not dramatic ones. Just the steady vibration of his phone against the marble kitchen counter, again and again, until even the silence in his penthouse felt nervous. First came Preston Hale, telling him not to speak to Maya without counsel. Then came Westbridge Capital, postponing the approval meeting Caleb had spent 18 months chasing. Then his chief financial officer called from the office, voice tight, saying the bank had requested clarification on several transfers. Caleb stood barefoot in his designer kitchen, staring at the skyline he used to believe belonged to men like him. "It is temporary," he said, though no one was there to believe him. Across town, Maya sat at her small kitchen table with a mug of coffee gone cold between her hands. Harold had emailed her a list of next steps, but she had only read the first line twice. "You are no longer required to negotiate from fear." She did not feel rich. She did not feel victorious. She felt exhausted in a way sleep could not fix. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and traffic passing below. On the counter sat the divorce papers Caleb had expected her to sign. They looked different now. Not harmless. Not final. Just paper. Around 8:30, there was a knock at the door. Maya froze. She was not expecting anyone. When she looked through the peephole, Caleb stood in the hallway wearing yesterday's shirt under a cashmere coat, his hair less perfect than usual, his face carrying the dull panic of a man who had finally met consequences. She opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. Caleb looked at the chain, then at her. "Really?" Maya said nothing. He cleared his throat. "Can we talk? You have a lawyer. I am not here as a legal matter." That almost made her laugh. Caleb had turned their marriage into a legal matter the moment he tried to bury her under paperwork. Still, she looked at him for a long second and said, "5 minutes." He stepped into the apartment slowly, as if the place had become unfamiliar territory. He glanced at the thrift store lamp, the stack of books by the couch, the framed photo of Maya and her mother on the shelf. Once, he had called this place depressing. Now he looked at it like it was the only room in the city where he might still be allowed to breathe. "Maya," he began, "yesterday got out of hand." She stood near the door, not offering him a seat. "No, Caleb. Yesterday got honest." His jaw tightened, but he swallowed it. "My mother should not have spoken to you that way. Lauren should not have been there." Maya tilted her head. "And you?" He looked down. "I made mistakes." Mistakes. Such a small word for years of being made invisible. Maya remembered washing his shirts before investor dinners, smiling beside him while his friends talked over her, lying awake while he came home late and blamed pressure. She remembered begging him to tell the truth and being called difficult. Caleb stepped closer, careful now. "We were under pressure. My family was in my ear. Lauren was a distraction. But you and me, we had something real once." Maya felt the old ache rise, but it did not control her anymore. "We did," she said. "That is why this hurt." His eyes softened, or tried to. "Then let us not throw it away." Maya looked at the man she had loved when he had nothing, and for one painful second, she saw him again. The young Caleb in the parking lot. The nervous smile. The promise. Then she saw the conference room. The pen. Lauren's smile. Margaret calling herself family only after the money appeared. Maya opened the door wider, but only to show him the hallway. Caleb stared at her. "Maya, you should go. Please." She shook her head. "You did not come here because you remembered me. You came here because the world finally did." Then she closed the door gently, not with anger, but with peace. And for the first time in his life, Caleb Whitmore stood outside Maya Brooks's door with nowhere left to enter. The courthouse was quieter than Maya expected. No dramatic crowd waited outside. No shouting. No grand entrance. Just polished floors, tired fluorescent lights, and people carrying private heartbreak in manila folders. Maya arrived with Harold Bennett beside her, wearing a simple black dress and the same small gold earrings her mother used to wear to church. She did not look like a woman trying to impress anyone. She looked like a woman who had finally stopped asking permission to stand up straight. Caleb was already there when she walked in. He sat at the opposite table with Preston Hale, his shoulders stiff beneath a charcoal suit. Margaret sat behind him, hands folded tightly over her purse. Lauren was 3 rows back, sunglasses pushed into her hair, pretending she had only come because she had to. But everyone in that room knew better. She had come to see whether the life she wanted still had Caleb's name on it. When the hearing began, Preston tried to make the story sound clean. A difficult marriage. A mutual separation. 2 adults moving forward. Maya listened without blinking. It was strange hearing her pain reduced to polite language. Harold stood after him, buttoned his jacket, and placed the first exhibit on the table. Your Honor, this was not a mutual financial disclosure. This was a strategy. Caleb looked down. Margaret closed her eyes. Harold walked through the records slowly, not cruelly, just clearly. Transfers into a Delaware holding account. Consulting payments that had no consulting behind them. Business assets moved after the divorce filing. A settlement drafted before Maya had independent counsel. Every sentence peeled something away from Caleb's perfect image. Preston objected twice. Both times, the judge let Harold continue. Then came the messages. Not all of them. Harold had warned Maya there was no dignity in turning pain into theater. But enough appeared on the screen for the room to understand. Caleb telling Lauren the divorce would be handled fast. Lauren asking if Maya would make a scene. Caleb replying, she never does. Maya felt that sentence in her chest. She never does. He had mistaken her restraint for emptiness. Her loyalty for fear. Her quiet for permission. The judge looked over the documents for a long moment, then turned to Caleb. Mr. Whitmore, were these assets disclosed to your spouse? Caleb's mouth opened. No answer came. It was the first honest thing he had offered in months. Maya stood only when Harold nodded. Her voice was calm, even though her hands were cold. I am not here to punish him for not loving me anymore, she said. People fall out of love. That hurts, but it happens. I am here because he tried to make my sacrifice disappear. He let me help build a life, then tried to tell me I was leaving with nothing because I was nothing. The courtroom went completely still. Maya looked once at Caleb, not with hate, but with the grief of finally seeing someone clearly. I do not want revenge. I want the truth written down where he cannot edit it. The judge ordered a revised disclosure, temporary restrictions on Caleb's disputed accounts, and a full review before any settlement could move forward. Caleb lowered his head. Lauren looked away. Margaret's face seemed smaller than Maya remembered, and Maya, who had walked into that building carrying 6 years of silence, walked out knowing the silence had finally spoken. Months later, Maya Brooks stood in front of a small office with fresh paint on the walls and sunlight pouring through the front windows. There was no chandelier, no marble table, no room full of people waiting to judge her. Just a hand-painted sign by the door that read the Denise Brooks Legal Relief Fund, named after the mother who had protected her in ways Maya was still learning to understand. Harold stood beside her with 2 paper cups of coffee and a smile he tried to hide. Your mother would have liked this, he said. Maya looked at the sign for a long moment. She would have told me the letters were crooked. Harold laughed softly. Probably. The settlement had been finalized 3 weeks earlier. Caleb lost the accounts he tried to hide, lost part of the company control he had built on borrowed loyalty, and lost the clean reputation he cared about more than the woman beside him. Lauren left before the final hearing, quietly, once she realized Caleb's future no longer looked easy. Margaret sent one note, handwritten and stiff, saying she hoped Maya could forgive the family someday. Maya did not throw it away. She also did not answer. Some doors do not need to be slammed. They only need to stay closed. Caleb called once after everything was done. Maya let it go to voicemail. His voice sounded smaller than she remembered. I know I cannot fix it, he said. I just want you to know I understand now. Maya listened while standing at her kitchen counter, then deleted the message before the old hurt could make a home in her again. Because the truth was, Caleb had not lost Maya overnight. He had lost her in every moment he made her feel alone while standing right beside her. He lost her when he let his mother look down on her. He lost her when he let Lauren speak for him. He lost her when he confused her silence with weakness and her love with something he could spend until it ran out. On opening day, the first woman who walked into the relief office wore a faded blue coat and held a folder against her chest like it was the only thing keeping her together. Maya greeted her at the desk herself. "You are safe here," she said. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "I do not have much money." Maya smiled gently. "That is not why we are here." And in that moment, Maya understood what her mother had truly left her. Not just a name, not just a trust, not just power. She had left her the chance to turn pain into shelter for someone else. Maya never became the kind of woman who needed people to fear her. She became the kind of woman who remembered what it felt like to be unheard and made sure the next woman would not have to beg so hard to be believed. Some people think revenge means making someone suffer. But sometimes, the deepest revenge is walking away whole, building a life they cannot enter, and becoming proof that the person they tried to break was never small to begin with.